Hello there, and welcome to the Whole Healed Holy podcast, a place for conversations of the heart, for exploring healing, divinity, and all things sacred. I'm your host, Patricia Russo. I'm a mystic, muse, and spiritual teacher, guiding women into their hearts with a journey of softening. I'm a published poet, a lover of hearts, and a forever student. Welcome, love, to a sacred pause and hopefully a few tingles, and to a reminder that we are all whole, healed, and holy. I'm so happy you are here. Let's slip into today's episode.
I got in trouble for teaching my sister how to write my name before she learned how to write hers. In my defense, it was all strategy. A stick with an egg, a circle with a line, and two lines crossed was much easier than a C-A-R-O-L-Y and N. I think I thought if she could write Pat, it would be a fast and simple success that would lead to more. And it did. But my mother was not impressed with the technique at the time. I've been a lot of things in this lifetime, but the one common thread that has been present almost from the very beginning and is even present in a huge capacity now with my work and service is that I'm a teacher. Being a big sister puts you in position naturally. And so much of being a teacher has felt very natural for me. I shared in my first solo episode that I spent many days when I was little in my room teaching to a room full of make-believe students, using a wax birthday candle as pretend chalk, as I wrote on the imaginary chalkboard wall of my bedroom. I remember, even though I despised school and I was not good at it at all, I was enchanted by a few of my teachers growing up, watching their every move and carefully cataloging these moves for my performance of my version in the classroom of my imagination. I have my grandfather to thank for planting the seed in my mind and in my heart of college during my teenage years. I wasn't really on that track with my dislike and frustration with learning and school in general. But he saw something in me that I didn't see for a long, long time. In a brave proclamation at some point, I announced that I was going to be a teacher. I'm going to be the teacher that I never had, was what I said. One with an empathetic heart of knowing what it felt like to not belong and to not excel with ease. Indiana University was the place where the wax chalk became real for me. I miss the classroom sometimes, and I actually have fantasies of academia. I cannot believe, but college felt so different than school before this. I loved being in a room full of bright minds, discussing Shakespeare and reading Zora Neale Hurston together. These are some of my most fond memories. On the day of our student teaching assignment announcement, I remember huddling together as a class, waiting to see where we would be placed. All of the bright-eyed new teachers ready for their assignments. And there was a little chatter about which school districts were better than the others, and each of us had our wish lists. I landed at the only school district known to still diagram sentences, which everyone dreaded. To be honest, I hated diagramming sentences, but I've always been incredibly good at making something terrible in the classroom into something more understandable and even fun. I taught middle school for a short moment during my 8 years of public school teaching. And on the day that I scheduled a lesson on how to write a proper paragraph, I greeted students at the door wearing a full-body cheeseburger costume. Middle school children are weird. They are strange creatures, really. They are emotional and their bodies are changing and they are just so strange. So you can imagine how they reacted when I, standing like nothing was unusual at the door, greeting them in my costume, said, "Hello and welcome. And how are you, so-and-so?" As if nothing was out of order. I walked in and I sang the Burger King song. 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, in my burger costume, standing in front of about 32 mouths gaping open, middle school preteens, looking at me like I was the crazy one. And just in case you don't see it yet, the top bun is the intro paragraph. The meat is, well, the meat of the paragraph. And the bottom bun is the conclusion. And all of the yummy stuff in the burger is what makes the paragraph so good. It's the details. I loved that we had our own language as a result of this lesson and this very memorable experience. And they never forgot that leaving the bottom bun out was not a good idea, or that having a burger without extras was really dull. I was the teacher with the classroom that I wish that I had walked into for all of the years that I taught. And frankly, it was hard to get the kids to leave sometimes. They were there early before school began, and they stayed late after school ended. And some even wanted to spend their lunchtime with me in these rooms. I became the teacher that I never had. I shared in my first solo episode that I was awarded Teacher of the Year one year for co-creating a program for at-risk students. This work was bittersweet for me. Tough kids and lots of heart, with even more heartbreak along the way. I still have the 2 batteries wrapped in notebook paper with a handwritten note on it from one of these students. I was absent one day, and when I returned, all of the batteries were missing from the tap lights that I had bought with my own money to use for test study games in class. You know, the lights that when you tap on them, they light up. I thought it would be a fun way to create a game show type environment for studying in partners, so I bought many of them for my classroom. When I returned and learned that someone in the class had stolen all of the batteries, I told the class that I was upset, especially because it was a personal expense and something that I wanted to provide for all of them to make the experience in my classroom more special. I am sure, because of what I'm about to share with you, and I'm sure that it was true on every day that I was in that classroom, that the students in that room in that moment felt my heart and felt my disappointment. The next day on my desk, the 2 batteries wrapped in a little notebook paper note from one of the students in the class who was homeless. She was sad that I was sad and wanted me to know how much she appreciated me and the classroom and my extra care. So she found the batteries and gifted them to me. It touched me deeply. So much so that I still have the little gift. What is a teacher? I'll tell you. It isn't someone who teaches something, but someone who inspires the student to give of her best in order to discover what she already knows. Paulo Coelho. Many years later, when I was finishing my yoga teacher training with Rusty Wells, a woman named Allison, who was the manager of a popular yoga studio in San Francisco at the time, called me to ask me what I was planning to do after the training. She wanted to know if I had decided where I was going to teach. I told her that I didn't feel ready and that I was doing the training for myself and not necessarily to teach. She indicated that she'd been watching what I was sharing on social media and that she felt I would be a beautiful teacher. And she asked me to stay close when I finished the training. I remember this call, and I remember and still feel to this day how beautiful it felt to be seen. Again, in a way that my grandfather saw me before I did. Months later, when I did finish, she contacted me again and asked me if I would come to audition for a teaching position. I told her I wasn't feeling ready, and she assured me that it would be a simple audition and that I should come prepared to teach. Now, there's no such thing as a simple audition for yoga in San Francisco. Although if there is, I certainly was blessed with one in the end. On this day, I arrived at the San Francisco studio along with a handful of other local yoga teachers who were prepared to audition, and we each took our place as the students in the small side studio. Allison and the studio owner were there, and the audition began by each of us getting our teaching order. When the audition started, the first teacher taught for 10 minutes, and then the next, and so on until we each had our moment. It was excruciating for me. Excruciating. I still think, as I'm remembering back, sharing the story, I can feel it in my entire body. The caliber of teachers that I was in the company of was beyond my level, and I could feel it. When I look back at this moment, I am in awe of the courage that it took for me to show up there and teach my very virgin 10-minute part. I left with my tail between my legs and with an absolute knowing that what I had shared with Allison before the audition was indeed the truth, that I was not ready. On my way home, my cell phone rang, and when I answered it, it was the studio owner, a well-known and beloved woman in San Francisco, who is still a dear friend of mine to this day. "Hi, Pat," she said. "How do you think the audition went?" she asked. "Oh, it was terrible," I said. "I don't really feel ready at all, and I felt so out of my league," I answered very honestly. "You are right," she said. "You aren't ready, but you have something that can't be taught." She paused. "I don't really do this anymore," she said, "but I have a feeling about you, and I'd like to mentor you. I can teach you the things that you don't know, and many of these things will come with practice. But you have something many teachers do not, something special that cannot be taught." This went straight into my heart, and I have never forgotten it. "I have a spot for you in the Marin studio," she said. "I'm giving you 30 days to prepare for another audition. It'll be just you, and you can invite anyone you'd like to be in the room as you teach. I'll be there, and Allison will be there too. I want you to be ready." What she taught me on this day was the teaching of my life. And a month later, when I taught to dear ones, my sister Liz was in the audience, and her presence there alone was an anchor. It felt a little different. I had put my entire heart into preparing a solid 20-minute class just like I had been asked to. Only this time I added some singing and a little poem and lots of heart. When the class was finished, Allison came up to me and told me that she was on the verge of tears, that it was so beautiful. And the owner said, "You still aren't quite ready, but it was so much better." I got the job that day, and I've been a student and very humble yoga teacher ever since. Many years later, a dear friend of mine named Amber walked into my classroom, my yoga class, starry-eyed as she often does, and open-hearted with her incredibly big energy and beautiful light. We were meeting for the very first time, even though we were in the same Bhakti community in San Francisco. She had just finished her teacher training at the moment, and I felt she was in a similar place that I was in when I first started. I told her that my class was open to her anytime she wanted to teach a pose or guide the class during a moment when she felt confident. And she did once. It felt so good in that moment to pay it forward with her. When I left that studio and the same Allison asked me if I knew anyone who could take my place, I told her it should be Amber. It was Amber's first yoga teacher position, something that we both cherish to this day. I am a very human, humble, forever student kind of teacher to this day. I've been asked to teach things over the years that I myself don't fully know. I've been seen as the teacher that I am by others before I see myself this way. I've been cherished by students, and I have touched the lives of so many by my approach, by my heart, by my teaching. And I guess if I had to say what it is, it's that I teach by example, from exactly where I am, with a heck of a lot of humility. And I feel so blessed to have this gift, this natural gift of being a teacher.
Thank you for listening. It means a lot to me that we have shared this moment of deep conversation. If you feel inspired or touched by something in this episode, please leave a comment and/or a review. For more in all the ways, please find me at Whole Healed Holy on Instagram and at www.patricia-russo.com on the web. Stay close, please, and know that you are whole, you are healed, and you are holy. I love you. Until next time.